Smith, Bud Elliott, back again to do another episode. Chuck Blunt joins us as well. Bud, I think this is like 12 years now that we've done position previews, 13 years. So awesome. Always a great moment in time to know that you made it through summer and August is here and we're talking about position, specific position conversation. Going to be doing the quarterbacks tonight. So always a fun time to talk about the most important position in the sport. And with that, we'll jump into it. We do these a little bit differently. Thank our sponsors off the bat. Chad and his wonderful team of home loan experts who've worked with more than 600 Nolecast listeners. Congruity, a team that I've worked with numerous times at different places along my own professional journey, and For the Table Restaurant Group, Madison Social, Township, and all the other wonderful properties that Matt Thompson and his team overlook make these positional previews possible. And hey, 1 minute and we're in. Let's go.
All right, so you change offenses. You want to go get a guy with some more mobility, a guy that is somewhat familiar with your offense, and they go get Gus Malzahn, who obviously we talked about in the last episode. Mike worked for Gus, and now Gus works for Mike. And you go get Tommy Castellanos from Boston College, who, like, regardless of who you believe, whether you believe Tommy or you believe BC about how it ended, like it ended poorly there last year. I think Tommy probably should have got out of there when he, correctly read or if he had read the room, he would have seen that Bill O'Brien, the Boston College head coach, is a guy that told Jalen Milroe to go play tight end. So maybe like the offense he wants to run is not exactly going to fit your skill set. Like that's probably regardless of how you feel about how it went down there at the end, and Tommy probably could have handled it better. And O'Brien's kind of a prickly guy too. So my guess is he probably could have handled it better as well. Like that was not a great fit for his skills. And I think off the bat, I don't know if I love the player, but I like the fit for what you might need this year. And it was a crappy portal for quarterback, man. And you look at Auburn, like they've been sitting on their transfer portal cash for years now. They've been just going high school. All right, guys, we're ready to cash in now. We got this nice roster rebuilt at high school. We're going to fill some holes. We're going to get a quarterback. We didn't hit on one at high school. We're ready to go side Jackson Arnold. You got to be kidding me, right? Like, so I don't hate bringing in Castellanos. I think it kind of, like I don't know how many dudes out there were a much better fit for the system that you brought in if you're Mike to save your job. And I'm curious, like what questions we have about this, how good we think this can be, like what's the minimum level we think this probably could be if he stays healthy, which is certainly a concern. There's a lot of stuff to get into here. What do you guys want to go with first? Like how good we think this kid is, like in the context of how good Gus's offense is. We got some interesting charts that Chuck's drawn up for us as well, which I think is a great feature to add to the show. Where do you guys want to take this first?
You're muted, Ingram.
I made it through one show without being a dumbass, and made it 3 minutes into the second one with being a dumbass. So good. Now that I've learned to unmute my mic, still struggling to work on this podcast thing, but one day I'll get it. No, I think you just have to acknowledge the system fit. There are only so many guys out there that are going to fit the system. There's probably nobody. I don't think there's anybody else in the Venn diagram that fits the system and, has the relationship with Gus historically. Let's look, man. Maybe in 4 months, Castellanos is going to New York or something crazy. Okay, but that's not what your expectation should be. I don't think. I think you have to acknowledge what this is. You're trying, like we said a second ago, or like we said in the previous episode, you're trying to dramatically lift the floor. This system allows you to do that. You're grading on a curve. I mean, I think Tommy, I was thinking about this driving today. I think Castellanos is going to remind people of like a New York Knicks 1990s era, like who's the shooter that would just
John Starks?
Yeah, John Starks. Exactly. There's going to be games where he's incredible, and there's going to be games where he's trying to shoot himself into a rhythm. And
irrational confidence.
Yep. Yeah, and
he's got some confidence.
That's what I think. I mean, I haven't seen any practices. I was at some in spring. Was impressed with the way he threw the ball. Was not. I'll also be honest with you and say was not throwing over an offensive or defensive line most of the time that I was there. I was impressed with his ball placement on intermediate passes and in places where you need to put it in a tight area. But we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, I don't just pick the basketball reference. Tommy's a point guard playing quarterback, man. And it's going to be fun to see what it looks like. There's going to be days where I think it'll be awesome, and probably some days where it's going to be frustrating. Mm-hmm. You referenced this in the past. By the way, Podcasting 101, not good to constantly reference a past episode simply because you recorded it 20 minutes ago. But Chuck, you referenced something with Castellanos in a previous episode that we did. The sack numbers scare me. I mean, that's something he's going to have to cut down on. You can't get sacked 6 times in a game or whatever in this offense. I think the offense is more talented than it was last year, but you're not going to be able to convert yourself at a lot of 3rd and 19s or something like that. You got to, be the system quarterback, be smart and explosive. And that's, a line that's hard to walk and a lot easier for me at a hotel room to talk about. But, that's really what Tommy's got to do. He's got to be smart enough that on the plays that you are explosive, you're not getting yourself out of a hole. Right. You're moving the ball 37 yards downfield. You're flipping field position.
Yeah. I mean, first off, it's going to help a lot if they can run the football, right? We've talked about this before, but you got to have the higher success rate, because if they can play ahead of the chains, it's going to allow Tommy to just be a little. You don't want him to be a sitting duck back there because it's 2nd and 12 and everybody knows he has to throw it. If it's 2nd and 7, you can do a little bit more and you can roll the pocket and you can allow him to take some shots down the field. I do think the fit is amazing. Like, I hadn't looked into this before, but I did a breakdown just of what Gus's starting quarterbacks have looked like at Auburn and at UCF. And then I looked at Tommy, and it's pretty crazy how similar they are. Like, Gus's quarterbacks on average are going to throw for 62% completions. They're going to attempt 23 to 25 passes a game. Well, if you look at Tommy on the right, he falls in line. He has a similar yards per attempt. That's something I think people need to be prepared for. Part of that low YPA is always going to come from a higher volume of attempts and with the lower completion percentage. So you're going to deteriorate your yards per attempt. So it's hard to complete passes 25 yards down the field. People need to understand that, but that's going to be where they try to take their shots. The one thing I'm most curious to see is Gus's quarterbacks on non-sacks typically average about 6 to 6.5 carries per game. Tommy's career across a year and a half at Boston College, he was closer to 13. So you would expect, if it's going to tip one way or the other, given what his actual strength is, I would expect it to be closer to that. It may not be 13 non-sacks per game that he runs the ball, but I would expect it closer to 9 or 10 times per game, and try to get him out there and just in the open field. Now, one thing he has had trouble with is protecting the football. That's going to be vital, because they can't afford to just get him boot away possessions because he doesn't tuck the ball away when he gets hit. Get down, get out of bounds, but don't turn the ball over and give the opponent, cheap field position.
Do you worry about the size of the sacks? Like, if you look at the chart here, sacks and yards lost, like, I mean, we're losing 11.6 to yards lost on sack. Like I'm a little bit concerned about taking some of these mega sacks to where it's like, all right, after you take one of these, you're like, sacks are drive killers, but then there's also the crazy ones.
Yeah, he can't run around crazy trying to find a play. When it's not there, get rid of the ball, but don't also retreat, right? That's where you get yourself in trouble. You retreat to try to buy time, and then once you ultimately get sacked, now you turned it into a 15-yard loss instead of a 6 or 7-yard loss. That's what he has to cut down on, is you don't always have to make the hero play.
Sorry, I was trying to type this. I think you're right about that. How effective do we think he's going to be as a deep passer? Because I know I know PFF had this thing where he was like the worst deep passer in the country, but I don't think I really totally buy that. I'm not great, but like Gus oftentimes does create some real opportunities to throw almost Petrino-esque to where it's like just like a wide open post. Like you just kind of got to lay it out there and just not whiff it, right? Did we lose Chuck here? We might have lost the webcam on Chuck, but like that's something I've been thinking about. Like I don't like stats can be predictive or descriptive, and I don't know that I actually think Castellanos is like the worst deep ball thrower among starters in the country. I don't really believe that. I'm not saying he's great, but also I think this offense may ask him to do different things than he was asked to do at Boston College. Like if you tell me, hey, within the structure of a pro style offense, he's the worst deep ball thrower in the country, maybe, right? Like that's not. I still don't know if I think that's right, but it's probably believable to me that because he's just not a pro style quarterback, like he's not a guy that's going to play QB in the NFL and whatnot. But I am a little bit, I'm concerned. Like, can you hit the layups, man, or can you throw the outlet pass that leads to the easy bucket?
Yeah. No, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. You gotta the opportunities that the scheme creates. That's where you got to do it. You can't. If you've got somebody running 4 yards in front of a safety down the middle of the field, you got to lay that up to an extent where your wide receiver can run underneath it. It's making the most out of the opportunities that either the system or the pace of play or whatever it is that creates this. And when you get a chance to hit a home run, you don't throw it 10 yards foul. I mean, keep the ball in field, let the play happen, and it's interesting talking about Tommy because Tommy will make a play this season that will make all of our heads explode for good and for bad. I mean, he'll probably score on a 67-yard scramble or something like that, and he probably will try to turn around twice and take a 19-yard sack. And that's just kind of what the guy's supremely confident in his ability. We knew that before any Bama interview or whatever else. That's what a lot of athletes have to be successful. And you're just going to have to try to govern the extremes. I know that's similar to what I said at the beginning, but the bad can only be so bad. And, the good's got to be good enough to take advantage of what's out there. And for him to take advantage of a pretty unique athletic skill set that he has.
Chuck, I'm not sure how much you're able to hear there when the webcam went out, but PFF had Tommy as like the worst deep passer in the country on some metric they had, and I was like, well, maybe in a traditional pro style offense, I could buy that he's like because he's not a pro style quarterback, he's not going to play quarterback in the league, but he's got to hit the layups obviously in Gus's system, like the wide open stuff that you get off play action.
I question how much does personnel play into that, right? I don't know that BC had a Deuce Robinson or a Squirrel White. And I think if those guys are healthy and in sync with Tommy, which it sure seems like Deuce loves playing with Tommy, I think Deuce could be an eraser where it doesn't have to be a perfect pass, just given his size. I mean, he can go up there and grab a rebound type of thing. And then Squirrel is fast enough that he might be able to a ball that was overthrown last year at BC might be caught because Squirrel just has that extra gear. So it's always hard to compare when you're changing personnel and offensive scheme. Yes, there are concerns about those deep passes, but it's going to be a 50-50 ball literally anyways. That's the type of passer he is. So I think I'll live with taking 8 shots and 4 of them coming down for 175 yards, right? And a couple TDs. I would live with it. I just would.
I think that makes a lot of sense. To Graham's point about how his variance is quite high, it almost makes you think like your chance of pulling one of the big 4 upsets, as we've come to kind of regard them, but also maybe having one of those mega frustrating ACC losses that you shouldn't, is actually probably higher than I wonder if we want to expect.
Right.
Because if he is really that up and down, like you might get like he almost beat that 23 team, and I know they warmed up in in surgical masks, and they like there was definitely some kind of flu-ish thing going on that team that day. But like, I mean, he gave him hell for quite against a defense that had a lot of future pros on it.
I don't think I'd be shocked if they beat Miami and turned around and lost to Pitt. Like, I could see that just because you don't really know what you're going to get. And plus, we don't know how they're going to handle success. So that also could play into it. You could have a big game, get that upset, and then have the letdown the following week, because that's just how 18 to 22-year-olds work anyways.
I think that's fair. You had an interesting question. Is he the second best runner Gus has had as a head coach?
And for context, Nick Marshall is probably his best, right? And that was his first 2 years as head coach at Auburn. The other ones I would probably put in the conversation would be John Reese Plumlee at UCF, who was very effective, bigger frame, I think able to handle that load. I think we don't know how Tommy at his size is going to handle that type of increased workload against this schedule. And the way Gus would prefer to use his quarterback. But I think Marshall's probably the most explosive runner he had. But I think Tommy is in that same category where he can rip off a run or rip off 50 yards when the defense kind of loses him when he's scrambling around. But that's where we don't want him to take those 15-yard sacks as well.
I think Plumlee is straight line faster than Castellanos. Like, if you line it up in a race, I'm betting Plumlee. Like, Plumlee has pull away speed that's like crazy, but I don't know that I think Tommy has a lot more wiggle. And it's probably a more natural, like, running of the football runner, you know? But it's a good point. Like, Gus his offense, I think, has been more overachieving when he does have a good mobile quarterback. But he has not had quite as many, because for a long time he was kind of screwing around with this idea he was going to run like a passing offense. I remember very clearly sitting next to Sean White, who won the Elite 11 that year on the plane out there. And you don't tell kids where to go, obviously. And this is like 10 years ago. He's like, yeah, like Gus is really going to develop like a pro style passing offense. And like, he wants me to be the guy. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
And if people remember, the guy who followed White was Jarrett Stidham, who wasn't exactly the biggest or the most mobile quarterback. It was much more of
that Baylor stuff.
Yeah.
Because Jared was at Baylor. He was at Baylor. Wasn't he like Texas Tech commit for a while? Like, Stidham had some real talent.
Yeah.
Like, Stidham's probably the second most talented quarterback Gus has ever had, next to obviously Cam Newton, but that was as a coordinator. But like, he's not a great runner for sure.
No. And Bo Nix wasn't exactly the most athletically gifted in the open field runner either. He was effective in his running, but I don't think you would want to gear your offense around giving him the ball 9 or 10 times and taking shots like he did with Cam, right? Or even tried to do with Nick Marshall at times.
Right. Agreed. So here's a question for you. And we do want to thank Congruity, of course, Congruity at congruityhr.com. Congruity at congruityhr.com does a great job for all of your business needs, whether that's payroll, HR, obviously health insurance as well. Congruity, somebody you guys should definitely hit up, and a lot of Nolecast businesses have as well. Chuck, you had asked, like, how many games, assuming everybody's healthy and Tommy's healthy, in how many games on this schedule do they have a quarterback advantage? I thought this was kind of a fascinating question.
I think I would give them the advantage at least in 6 and lean 7 or 8. Like, clearly you don't have the better quarterback against Bama, even though Simpson's unproven, who was named starter today, by the way. I don't think he's better than Carson Beck. He's definitely not better than Klubnik. And I would take DJ Lagway even probably in a walking boot, just being honest, because Lagway is physically gifted, right? Like, but those other 8 games, I mean, East Texas A&M and Kent State aren't bringing in a better quarterback. Wake Forest is starting a true freshman. I think I would take Tommy in that situation. Would you take Eli Holstein over him?
I'm not a Holstein guy. I bet you a lot of Pitt people would push back and say yes. But like, that to me felt very Cinderella. Like, he's going to turn back into a pumpkin at some point last year, and then kind of did. down the stretch.
Drones at Va-Tech is a good conversation. I mean, Drones is probably the bigger version of Tommy, right? He's what Tommy believes he is, 6'6", 250 pounds, and I'm going to run you over. But neither one has the greatest resume to date, so I don't know. It's kind of
They're running a
coin flip.
similar offense too. Obviously, Montgomery is kind of off that Malzahn tree.
Yeah, and then the NC State's the other one. Oh, and Stanford. I'm taking. I don't care who plays quarterback at Stanford. No. I'm taking Tommy.
Yeah, Stanford is still up in the air. Cal's going to start the true freshman, by the way.
Okay,
that's what I heard. You don't play Cal this year, but Bailey at NC State's interesting. For this offense specifically, I think I would rather have Tommy. I think a lot of people would take CJ because he played fairly well as a true freshman. But like, you got quarterback advantage in at least half the games, maybe 7 or 8. I think that's something you can. Hell, how many games last year did you have a quarterback advantage?
Just the FCS game, right? I mean, that's it. I don't know that I would take an FSU quarterback in any of the other 11 games.
Shoot. I mean, and obviously, like, DJ looked hurt last year.
Right.
FSU schedule 2024. Couldn't have been many.
No.
All right, Florida, no. Notre Dame, no.
Miami and Clemson, no.
UNC. I mean, honestly, like, their kid wasn't any good. Neither was yours.
Yeah.
SMU, no. Clemson, no. Like, was Malik Murphy better than DJ? I guess, but like, Duke kind of told
DJ didn't even play that game, right? Wasn't DJ gone by that point? Wasn't that Croman Hope?
Yeah, that was.
And Brock had 5 turnovers or something.
That was not great. I mean, Haynes King. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, in hindsight, you only had a QB advantage in probably 1 or 2 games last year.
Yeah,
that's
it's hard to win ball games. I mean, it's one thing to look back on. If you don't have a quarterback, you're gonna struggle to win football games, no matter how good your run game and defense is. You have to make plays at some point with the quarterback's arm.
How much confidence do you have in Kevin Sperry? Because he's been running with the 2s. Obviously, Brock's been hurt.
I think it's great that they have those 2 games after Bama for an extended fall camp. I don't think anybody wants to see 2024 part 2, though, if he has to start for any extended period of time. No offense to him, but I don't want to watch a true freshman play quarterback with guys whose confidence might be in question.
I would agree with that. I think, like, stylistically, I like the continuity of fit. If that makes sense, I guess. Like, they're both guys who can run it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in the bigger games, I want Tommy running it.
Yes.
And if he, Dolph Lundgren kind of, right? Like if he gets hurt, all right, man, like you were brought here to run.
Yeah.
Because, like, the backup is going to run a similar offense. Probably not as well, obviously, but.
I don't think you bring Tommy in to try to put training wheels on him. I mean, you bring him in to let him run the offense, and it's football. Something bad can happen on every play. But you got to leverage that guy's skills and talents, and that skill and talent is frequently incorporating his legs. If nothing else, just to let his arm be more dangerous when you do lean on it.
There is a little element, I think, of game management and, like, white flag waving that you got to kind of be smart with a guy like Tommy, because Tommy has unbelievable and probably at times unjustified self-confidence. Okay. Some of the comments are kind of evidence that. Marcelo today on CBS, Brandon Marcelo, my colleague, said that he talked to Malzahn over the summer right after the Castellanos comments, and Malzahn had basically said, like, yeah, we had to talk about him, like, that probably won't happen anymore. And then, like, he doubled down, like, the next day. So, like, Tommy's got a little belief to him for sure. That scares me somewhat in terms of, like, when the game's over, I don't know if you have to get him out of there, but I think you have to tailor the play calling a little bit. It's like, okay, like, hey, it's handoff time. It's get rid of the ball time. We do need you fresh for the next game.
Do either of you put any stock in, and this stat has been broadcast a lot, but Mike Norvell with and without Jordan Travis? Now, for those who don't know it by heart, he was 28-10 when Jordan Travis was his starting quarterback. The offense averaged 35 points a game. In the other 22 games, he is 5-17, and the offense averages 16 points a game. Is this just a weird coincidence, or is there something to this that Mike hasn't been able to figure out when he doesn't have Jordan?
Small number. Also, like 2021 Jordan was so different than 2023 Jordan. That's why it's not Jameis Winston, Jimbo Fisher, where Jameis was as ready a product, particularly after his redshirt year, as you're going to see. I don't tend to put quite as much stock into that because Jordan was such a different player. Mm-hmm. And, oh, yeah, by the way, Jordan played with Jared Verse, Fisk, Keon Coleman, like
AZ.
A lot of really talented kids in that window of time that, you know, weren't there in Mike's first couple of years and weren't on the team last year either. I'm going to have to believe that in time that stat. I mean, look, it's always nice, and 13-0 is going to be a statistical barometer that's hard to change. But I think the larger the sample size gets on that, the more you'll see a little bit of a leveling out.
Fair.
I think also, okay, what's the best receiver group that you've had under Mike Norvell under a team that was not QB'd by Jordan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, we had some first guessing on Malik Benson last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that proved to be prudent.
This group this year is probably the best he's had when you take out the years with Jordan, right?
By a lot, maybe.
Yeah. Especially when you factor in the tight ends as well.
Like, putting that stat in context, is this starting offensive line the best you've had on any of the non-Jordan teams? Now, Mike Norvell would have told you last year that Darius Washington was a first-round pick and an All-American, you know, which maybe not. And like, you know, like I think we were like, well, look, we think the kid's pretty good. That's like that's high praise, man. Like, you guys just played Georgia in the Orange Bowl. You realize what their kids look like, right? Like, it's a little bit different. But so preseason, no, right? Like, preseason, we would have said last year's line better than this year's line. With the benefit of hindsight, I think the odds this line is worse than last year's line are very low.
Right.
What about prior years in which you didn't have Jordan?
At 2022, when you didn't have Jordan?
Right. Like 2021 was not a great line.
No.
And definitely not 2020.
No, again, I think this all dovetails. Like, the 2020, like, the early Mike teams are not good, man. The roster's not good. No, I think you're just going to need more time. And really, for all intents and purposes, I think you're asking yourself, is this facet of this year's team better than last year's team? Because pre-Jordan is a tough conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is. And I think the pieces around it are better as well. This is kind of why, like, I've increased my confidence in this team a little bit. Like, it's not really Tommy. I mean, I think like it's more the fit than the player, to be honest. And then I think the pieces around him, just, you know, if they can stay healthy, like that's encouraging.
Yeah.
You know.
You got two pieces, and then, you know, we'll have to see what happens with Brock. I had numerous people in college football reach out to me after the Clemson game last year, people who are like professional talent evaluators who were impressed. I think there's a home for Brock out there. It's not a great system fit for him. So, you know, we'll see what happens. See how he continues to evolve. A good athlete, by the way, not like a slow, and he's not blazing fast, but well coordinated, good athlete. Just don't know that this system's a perfect fit for him.
I would agree with that. Got anything else on quarterback?
What's a success if we're looking back at the end of the year from a statistical perspective for Tommy? I'm just curious. How do Chuck, this is more your lane, but how do we frame that? And I tend to be one that, some of Tommy's play is going to be nebulous or whatever. It's not going to show up on a stat sheet. But still, stats are stats, and more or less the back of the baseball card doesn't lie to you a whole lot.
So I've tried to play a little bit with a little weighted average, looking at some of Gus's numbers and some of some of Tommy's numbers. And I'm thinking if he's somewhere around 60 to 61% completion percentage, which is what you would expect out of a Gus quarterback, he's probably going to throw. And remember, these are over 12 games, so it's not factoring in a bowl game or anything, but like 2,150 yards on about 7.5 yards per attempt. It's not going to be Jameis, who averaged 10 yards an attempt. I don't want people to think that's what type of, because everybody hears shot plays. You think it's going to be a higher yards per attempt. But again, when you don't complete as many, you're going to you deteriorate your yards per attempt. So 7.5 yards per attempt, probably 16 or 18 touchdown passes. And given his history and what tends to you've seen with Gus's offense, you're probably going to wind up with 8 interceptions. And then I would expect another 650 on the ground from him. So when it's all said and done, he probably accounts for 22 to 24 total touchdowns and about 220 to 230 total yards per game.
I can see that.
I think if you get that from him, you're going to win at least 7, I would guess, if not 8, and maybe spring one of those upsets so that you can come home with 9 wins. So it's somewhere in that 7 to 9 ratio, or in 7 to 9 range, if you get those type of numbers out of Tommy.
I think like in conference season, if he gives you like 1,500 passing yards and like let's call it like 375 rushing, so it's like just under 50 rushing yards a game, just under 200 yards passing a game, but you're playing every game, so you're getting those aggregate numbers. If you get 1,500 and 400, I feel pretty good about going 5-3 in the league.
Yeah.
And like, that's really kind of the key. Like if you go 5-3, the worst you're doing overall is that 7-5 number, right. Maybe a Florida doesn't have a lag at the end of the year or something like that. Obviously I like the kid a lot, like super nice kid, but he's got an injury history now and you just don't know. Maybe you clip Bama in week 1 because they're brand new. Possible, probably not likely, but it's possible. Like if you give me that kind of volume, man, I think I would take that all day. And maybe a little bit less, but like not a lot less. Like it's got to come, and that's also banking on like, hey, yes, Chroma, right? Like the guy is actually like being a stud for you. Maybe Sawchuk or I mean, to the extent you can still believe in Roy Dale after watching last year, like maybe those guys give you something too.
Do we believe Tommy has to play well to make the run game work, or the run game has to be impactful for Tommy to work?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't think I believe in this O-line to be like a dominant run blocking O-line if you did not have a mobile quarterback. Like it's a veteran line. I think almost all these guys are going pro in something other than sports. It's not like they're overwhelmingly talented. They're veteran. I think that's what you needed at this time. Obviously, like your right tackle is a chance if he stays healthy and right attitude and whatnot. But I think you need Tommy to make the run game work.
Okay. So he will have to create some plays to open run lanes for Chroma and some of those guys.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, like okay. if you want the run game to carry you, I don't think it is capable of doing so if you don't have a real run threat at quarterback in this offense with like this personnel.
So it's kind of the reverse of 22 when the run game was so strong and then it opened up the passing game for JT. It'll kind of be the reverse here.
Oh, I was thinking like you need the threat of Tommy's legs to open up the run game for the backs.
Okay. Make them account for him.
I don't think anybody's scared of Tommy's passing.
No. But you'll need that run game to open some of the play action to be able to hit Deuce and Squirrel down the field.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Correct. Okay. Yeah. I thought you meant like using Tommy's legs to open up the backs. Part. Okay.
No, I just meant, does he need to be successful pushing the ball, like even hitting those intermediate routes and to back them all? Like I'm scared that defenses might load the box against this offense because Gus wants to run it. And then it makes it a little like it takes away the run game. And will Tommy be as effective if there isn't a run game to get the game going early for him? Does he need that to be able to then set up a shot to deuce? Or can he loosen the defense up by hitting some of those intermediate routes and then create some run lanes for the run game to actually get going?
Oh, I think in theory he could. We've never really seen him be an accurate, passer in that way. So I think, like, in theory, yes. In practice, it's probably you need the run game to open up the pass game.
Okay,
I would think. But who knows? He's been working with Cam Moore's quarterback trainer, so like maybe anything's possible, right? I guess.
I think that's the fun part about this season. We just don't know how this stuff's all going to come together, and so that's got me anxious for the season to get here. I'm just curious to actually see it all put together.
I don't want to see like some flashes against Bama. If you don't beat them, like I do want to see like some stuff that gives us some hope.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we have here on the quarterback preview? We've gone like 30 minutes. This is, I think it's pretty solid. Feeling better about the room now than last year. You got anything else, Graham? Anything else, Chuck?
Nothing from me.
All right. Hopefully we see a lot of touchdowns scored at Madison Township. See you guys there.